Hello! Now, as play-ins have finally concluded, I'm going to do a short review, recap on the players and champions. In this video we're going over some interesting champion statistics. Not too many because I want to hold it rather short. And also some statistics are rather team reliant and we can't evaluate a player by their team's performance per se. So I'm going just over a few stats. So starting in the top lane, the top 5 KDAs, kill, death, assists, right? So starting with TL's impact, 5.56 KDA. That's really good for a top laner. Following that, PSG's Hanabi, 4.69. LGD's Langx, 4.13. Supermassive's Armut, 3.69. LG's Legacy's Tapoon, 3.29. So yeah, there are some names that we will see more often on this list. Obviously, if someone is a good player and has a good KDA, the chances of them having a high kill participation or CS per minute stats are also very common. And by that, seeing a player in multiple of these top 5s, we can then, see and deduce that he is in fact a good player, like in a semi-reliable way. Also, this reflects what we saw in play-ins in most cases. So talking about CS per minutes, INTZ's Tay, 8.18, PSG's Hanabi, 8.13, LGD's Langx, 8.12. Following that, Armut from Supermassive, 7.69, and TL's Impact, 7.42. Nothing too surprising besides INTZ's Tay in first position. Yes, he has played less games than some of these other players here, but still, for a last place team to hold such a good CS score in top lane, that's really good. Also, we have to remember the team was not playing around him. Really good for him. As I said, he's one of their best or better players. INTZ, like individually, they aren't really that bad, but their team play was not that good. Also, pick one, also not prioritizing the relevant champions. Looking at the kill participation, there we can see some like team play from the top lane, but very important or very interesting to say if a player has high kill participation. It means that he's playing around with his team, or that his team is team fighting a lot. In the case of Supermassive Armut with 72.8%, this is what I was always talking about. He's team fighting and ulting and TPing to his teammates in many cases. So yeah. Then similar story for Legacy's Tapoon, 70.4%, followed by Rome from Mad Lions, 68.4%. Again, INTZ's Tay, 67.9%, and then lastly, LGD's Langx, 65.6%. So yeah, we see overall some top laners like Armut, Langx, Hanabi, and Impact are regularly in these top 5 stats, but also Tapoon and Tay with his high CS score are showing that they're not that bad, even though in hindsight we know they haven't made it out of groups play-ins. So looking into the jungle, this is something where one player will heavily dominate. And yeah, looking at the KDA, we see PSG's Commune with 12.17 KDA. Yeah, that's really good KDA. Yeah, he played just 5 games, but there's a loss in them, and now we know Group B was in fact the harder group, right? More teams out of the group made it out. So yeah, this is quite amazing. Followed by that, following him, we have TL's Broxer, 9.33. After that, we have a huge gap. UL's Ananachik, 4.23. shortly followed by Babib and Kakao from Legacy and Supermassive with 4 and 3.75. So yeah, we see Kong Yune and Broxa, really sick players, performing very highly in their team. And yeah, we will see that in the other stats as well. CS per minute also Kongye as jungler 7.77, really solid. Then some others follow like Kakao 6.82, Broxa 6.37, Peanut 6.32, and then Shadow lastly 6.23. Yeah, very decent, very good CS per minute stats, right? Farming junglers are now relevant, so CS per minute is an important stat to look at the moment. And seeing that Kongine, even though he played Echo in 2 games, which is not the farming jungler, has one of the highest CS per minute stats here. Really good. Also, someone like Shadow or Kakao, who were like who weren't making it out now. As such, they have lost quite a few games with with a losing track record. To have such a high CS number, it's really good. Looking at kill participation, lastly, Legacy's Babib 81.6%. So how does something like this happen? Either he's the main carry, or he and his team are mainly focusing around team fights, and as such, someone like him, or his top laner Tapoon, who also has high kill participation stats, reach these stats, right? If a team is always team fighting, kill participation will also be quite good if none of these are able to get solo kills. And this is the case with Babib in this case. He's not really like getting the solo kills or like the 2v2 kills, but he's more looking for some team fights, and there he's getting his assists and kills. Following him, we have the opposite of that, PSG's Kongyun. Also team fighting, yes, but also skirmishing in top lane, bot lane, 2v2s, 3v3s, looking for 1v1s in enemy jungle. Yeah, his skill participation is more based on his performance rather than a team play. Following that, we have a similar story with Supermassive's Kakao. Then we get V3's Boogie with 70.6%, and then lastly Broxa with 67.5%. So yeah, the kill participations are a bit all over the place. Yes, overall we see like as said, Broxa, Kongine, Kakao, we see them in most of these rankings indicating their prowess in the jungle. And yeah, this was also shown on the Rift. So, moving into the mid lane. And yeah, there's also there are also 2 players who are pretty good. So in KDA we have first PSG's Uniboy with a KDA of 24. 24 KDA in play-ins while losing a game in the hardest group. Yeah, this is really good. Some could now say he's a KDA player, right? But that's not true. He was popping off in many games. Yes, he was playing set or in some cases, but what does that mean? He is playing engage, right? So he wasn't really playing backline champions in many games. Yeah, he had some Oriana games, but to say that he is a KDA player is a complete understatement of what he does in the game. Following that, we have TL's Jensen with a 9.14 KDA, also really good. Just not as outstanding as Uniboys. Following that, we have like more normal KDAs from Nomans 4.4, at Legacy's Tally 3.89, and LGD's Shia 3.71. Like even the last 3 KDAs are really solid. For 4 KDAs are quite good. But yeah, they're not as outstanding as PSG's and TL's. Obviously, these teams were first in their group, so they were the absolute best. So it's easier for their players to get these high numbers, but also because their players are that good is the reason why they got first place in the first place, right? Looking into CS per minute, that's a bit different. And first we have Mad Lions Humanoid with 9.56 CS per minute. That's a really solid stat. Not that outstanding, but in a now like more fighting heavy meta, um, that's rare to see from a mid laner to get these really high, nearly 10 CS per minute. Um, we haven't seen group stage yet, right? But this is quite a bit better than anyone else. Um, yeah. Following that, we have UL's Nomads with 8.99, TL's Jensen with 8.96. Yeah, closely to 9 CS per minute. Chie 8.57 and Uniboy with 8.28. So we see like LGD and PSG as well as Jensen um, like with a bit lower than humanoids, but these teams were like more skirmishing and more up in your face in the early game instead of farming and then rotating to catch side lane waves. Maybe it also indicates that their lane manipulation wasn't as smart as Mad Lions, right? To manipulate set lines to maximize the CS. But this is a bit speculation on my part. Um, these teams were like more brawl heavy than Mad Lions overall. Especially in the later games, Mad Lions was more going for scaling and then waiting and farming most of the time. Looking into kill participation, we see TL's Jensen with 7.71, PSG's Uniboy 76.6, LGD's Shield 76.2, and then Envy and Tally from INTZ and Legacy with 75.5%. Overall, rather high kill participations, but that's to be expected from the mid lane. Mid lane also the lane everyone plays around, the lane roaming everywhere, closest to most skirmishes at all. And yeah, additionally, like we saw some team fights from some teams. So seeing Tally here again, Legacy was mainly team fighting around Riz, the AD carry. So yeah, in these 5v5 team fights, everyone was there when kills happened. So yes, uh, looking back over it, to see Uniboy, Jensen, and Nomads in most of these statistics in the like top rankings is no surprising thing. These three were like by far the best mid laners, in my opinion. We saw it in the stats, we saw it on the Rift, we see it in the standings. Yeah, they're just really good. And while Jensen is the player we already really know, seeing Nomads again and again, and Vega Squadron, for example, Uniboy and Kongye, I can't understate how much this duo surprised. And yeah, River and Tank have it really tough. 24 KDA and what was it, 12.2, 12.17 from Kongye. The CS per minute and kill participation stats, yeah, they were really carrying. Anyway, moving into the AD carry position, we have to make a short disclaimer. For PSG, they were switching their AD carries, right? So D and Unified were playing not all 5 games, so they were playing way less games than anyone else. So it's a bit hard to compare them to the rest. So I'm going to mention them a bit, but not fully include them in the list. D played 2 games, Unified played 3, I think. So yeah, others who played 5 or maybe 10 games even um, have like way developed stats than these two. Yeah, just a short notice. For KDA though, D and Unified are like place 1 and 2 with 11 and 9.67 KDA. Yes, it's easier to have good KDA when you play less games, right? So going to the next one, TL's Tactical 7.38 and LGD's Kramer 7.36. 7 KDAs as an AD carry. Yeah, really good. AD carries are not that strong and will get abused quite easily today. So to have these KDAs is quite good, especially for LGD's Kramer. While having this early struggle in the first few days. Following that, UL's Gadget 3.83 and INTZ's Mikao or Miko 3.82, also nearly 4 KDA, really solid, nothing to scoff at. Additionally, with INTZ losing that many games. Looking into kill participation, CS per minute, we see V3 Archer in first, 9.72. Really, really good CS per minute. For an AD carry, this is really solid, especially right in the meta and so on and so on. Following that, Kramer 9.38 and Tactical 9.18. Still very decent good CS leads. Looking further down the list, Legacy's Reese 8.68 and Supermassive Side Note 8.1. Nothing to scoff at. Yes, like there were many fights going on here and there, so it's understandable that the CS numbers overall in any position have dropped so far. Looking then into the kill participation, we see something surprisingly. INTZ's Mikao with 79.2% kill participation. Yeah, showing who is the carry, right? If an AD carry has a high kill participation, it shows that the team is mainly playing around him and then mainly team fighting, right? Because usually an AD carry cannot globally carry. An AD carry cannot is usually not doing the solo kills. So if an AD carry has a high kill participation, it shows that the team is team fighting a lot, and then in turn enabling their AD carry to carry. Following that, PSG's D 78.6%, but then V3's Archer 78.4%. Another bottom tier team with a good AD carry, right? We saw his CS per minute stat. Very good to see. Following that, PSG's Unified 76.3%, and then a bit lower we have Matt's Karzi and Legacy's Reese with 73.5 and 71.4%. Still, as expected, most are in the 70-ish percent radius, like we saw in mid lane and the jungle and so on, right? A bit lower than the other positions, but this is to be expected. AD carry are mainly focusing on farming and surviving instead of fighting in the early and mid game right now, with them usually being rather weak there. So, moving down into the support position, we're not focusing on CS per minute, by the way. Supports are not farming unless they are playing something like Wukong and then are sidelining. So yeah, I'm not going to talk about CS per minute. But we can talk about KDA still. So a 12.2 KDA for Core JJ and a 10.71 KDA for PSG Kaiwing. Again, the top tier teams with their top tier supports, right? Core JJ is known to be the best, if not the second best player on TL. So this is not surprising to see him have some great support stats as well. Kaiwing, similar story, his 3v3 and also his play with the different AD carries at all highlight him as a player, really doing much for his team. And yeah, especially his early game role, so good. His team up with Kongyu to invade. Yeah, either of these players are really solid, and Kaiwing doing his part. Then moving a bit down in the KDA, but still not bad by any means. UL Santanas and LGD Mark with 4.72 and 4.35. Yeah, over 4 KDA, really good, really good. Especially on engaged supports, right? Santanas was playing Alistair in games. Similar story for Mark and his Leona and Rakan. So yeah, really good. Shows that they know their limits in teamfights and are not overextending themselves too much. Looking into the kill participation, we see again our top supports. PSG Kaiwing 79.8%, Core JJ with 73.5%. 79.8% kill participation is just insane. As a support, right? It means you're roaming like all the time, and all the mid lane skirmishes, you're mostly there. And then in team fights, you are initiating on the key targets that will die, meaning you get the assists and kills there. Yeah, PSG Kai Wing, like super important player for his team. And yeah, happily we will see him in group stage, not like his other 3 teammates that have left in the playing stage. A similar story for Core JJ, but not to such a great extent. A few percentage points less than him. Still 73% in a support position. This is really good. Following that, INTZ's Redbird, Matt's Kaiser, and Legacy's Isles. Yeah, they were also roaming around, Kaiser and Redbird especially. This is reflected in their numbers. And Isles was, well, he was hand-holding with Reese in many cases. Yeah, so these skill participation stats are all explainable. A bit low on the 4th and 5th place, but yeah, nothing all too bad. So let's talk about some overall stats. Leaving out D and Unified now totally, because it would just be a nuisance. So overall, the best KDAs: Uniboys, Core JJs, Kongunes, Kai Wings, and Broxers. Yeah, PSG and TL in all spots. So yeah, we see how good they were, and even with both teams losing a game, it didn't reflect too much on their numbers. CS per minute, Archer, Humanoid, Kramer, Tactical, and Nomads. Usually we only see AD carries here, but to see 2 mid laners here, really good, shows that they were farming correctly, and probably that their team was a bit smarter with their lane setups, so the mid laners were able to farm safely in side lanes. Then for kill participation, Legacy's Babib, Kaiwing, Mikao, Archer, and Kongyune. Really interesting to see junglers and supports here, which is expected, but also then 2 AD carries shows how much their teams relied on them in team fights and were not doing anything proactive in other positions. Or well, let's say their proactive plays weren't working out that greatly. So yeah, this is an overall rundown on all the player stats, or the most interesting player stats. We see that the PSG and TL lineups are really excelling and most what they're doing. Additionally, we see some of the highlight players of some teams: Kaiser, Reese, Zeitnot, Kakao, Armut, Tally, Babib, and so on, right? Many players who are not making it out, and maybe their teams weren't even doing that well, but they show through their numbers that even though we may not have paid attention to them, they were winning their own in their own regard. So that's it for the player recap. Following that will be the champion recap. So yeah, see you there and have a great day.